of the upper half, which is freezing the mind, the heart, the will, is of course a global phenomenon today that we can observe in various forms, in all major countries. And so what I would say, when you look at the phenomenon of fundamentalism in the US, its white supremacy, domestic terrorism, or when you just look at the political sphere, Trumpism, by which I mean activating anger, hate, and fear, and ignorance, right, as a political strategy. So that's also, so what's one number for that? 12,000, right? While in office, President Trump has, issued more than 12,000 lies and false or misleading statements. So how did that hurt his numbers, his approval numbers, approval ratings? Not at all, right? And that's what we mean with post-truth politics, right? So it's based on amplifying ignorance, based on activating fear, and based on activating us versus them, being stuck in one collective skin. So that's what we see playing out in politics right now. So where have we seen that again? I don't know whether you follow the big discussion in the US that's currently happening around the big data companies. Because the big criticism there is, so you can watch that, The Great Hack on Netflix. It's a great documentation that gets you into all the major issues around that topic. It's also, you can read a book, if you want to read a book about that, Shoshana Zuboff, Surveillance Capitalism. Probably one of the most important books so far published in this century. So, Shoshana Zuboff, Surveillance Capitalism. She makes exactly the same argument, that capitalism has gone through a mutation the past decade. And it's based on a business model, right, that takes away data, privacy, and the data from people, and uses them as raw material to turning them into predictions, which then are used to modify the behavior at the scale of the whole population, right? So that's basically activating the same, and so that means you want to maximize user engagement, right? How do you maximize user engagement? Well, fear and hate. Those are the two safest ways of doing it. And that's why the algorithms reflect these principles, and thereby lead to a situation in our politics that is basically putting a toxic coat over our democracy, right? We see a polarization in the US that we haven't seen before. It's basically the country falling apart, and these different parts no longer can talk to each other. And that is disabling us on the level of the collective. So the big thing happening in the past 2 years, or 15 months I should say, in the US is becoming more aware of that phenomenon. And so that's a very important development, because only when we become aware, we can re-establish our ownership on our own data, and then can create a constitution around that is actually serving the well-being of all, rather than the domination of the few. So, with that, I would say the Trumpism today is the result of two factors. One, with Trumpism I mean this whole phenomenon on the upper side. Is one term for that. I don't mean specifically that person. So more as a symptom, not the phenomenon itself. So it's the result of two factors. One, disruption happens, and two, the lack of capacity to lead into the emerging future. So what I'm basically saying is, Trumpism is the result of a massive educational failure, of a massive failure of our institutions to build these capacities, schools and universities, in all our other organizations, right, where we spend tons of money into capacity building, but are not building these deeper capacities that are really needed now that we face so much disruption in our societies. And I think kind of that's what brings all of us here. I think the 200 projects, right, that were mentioned, that we bring together here in this room, they are all projects operating on this level. And we all know, anyone who participates in social change initiatives today knows there's a whole ecosystem, there's a whole movement beginning to take shape. But we also see a bunch of things happening on the upper side. However, what we don't have on the lower side is an amplification mechanism, right? Facebook, and all the social media amplify basically everything that's here, right? Through a mechanism that's driven basically by the business model, right? Whenever they call on that, they apologize, but that means nothing, because the entire business model is built on that. So that's the real conflict that we are talking about here. And the good news is that now we are beginning to to talk about these things. And the more we'll talk about these things, the more we will be able to reshape the fundamental conditions. All right, so what I'm going to explore is basically, and the question I want to ask is, so if we, I think a lot of these people cannot see. Let me just take this down. So, thank you. So this little depiction here is a little bit like the microcosm that we are in. So there's a lot going on the upper side, there's a lot going on the lower side, a lot of initiatives, but what we don't have is an amplification mechanism. And I think that's one of the questions for us, how to really bring all these initiatives that we are part of together. And I think that's really a part of the larger movement that's beginning to take shape across many cities and places, and I think it starts locally first, particularly in cities and place-based communities, and then will reach out to other communities. But what I want to ask as a question is, how is it that we live in a world that is polarized in these dimensions, and where sometimes we are here in our better moments, and then maybe in the collective situations we are drawn into these dynamics? How is it that we can, stay on course? And how is it that we can, particularly on a collective level, we can really realign our attention with our intention? Because our intention is here, but the attention is often drawn into here. And I think part of leadership today is to realign attention and intention. Why does that matter? Because energy follows attention. Wherever, as a change maker, right, you put your attention on, that's where the energy goes. The people around you, the people in your team, the people in your organizations, they pick that up, right? Energy follows attention. So therefore, whether or not you can realign your attention with your intention has a big impact, not only on your own well-being, but also on your effectiveness of creating change that is grounded in these aspirations and in these intentions. All right, so let me add a third little remark here, which is about systems thinking. And so what is really the essence of systems thinking? The essence of systems thinking starts with a very simple distinction, which is the distinction between symptoms on the one hand and root issues on the other hand, right? You have seen this a million times, the iceberg model. So what differs in these models is, of course, how is it that we spell out these deeper root issues here? But, you know, three different levels I see there is structures, right? Structures that are broken or not. And then you drill a little deeper, kind of paradigms of thoughts. Usually it comes down to some mental model, right? These institutions are designed on, or assumptions. And then I would say the past 15 years, right? The one new thing that happens in systems thinking is actually the sources, right? Connecting to the deeper sources. Sources of our creativity, sources of our own inspiration, sources of who we are, not only individually but also collectively. So often today, as change makers, we deal with problems that if we do not address them on this deeper root level as well, we are just tinkering at the surface. So we are saying all the right things, but it's not really changing the behavior to the level we know is necessary today. All right, so what is it then in terms of the symptoms that we see here? And I like to categorize, of course you can do that in any way, but I like to categorize the different symptoms in three groups, which is the ecological divide, the social divide, and the spiritual divide. Basically, the disconnect between self and nature, self and other, and self and self. So, all these, we heard a few numbers before. I don't have to go through this here, I think, amongst us. But I want to just, Ronald made mention of that, but the SDGs, of course, can be also categorized the same way, right? The first 10 basically dealing with the social divide, the next 5 with the ecological divide, and you could say the last 2, they deal with the deeper foundations, right? The deeper foundations based on which, right, peace and society and also collaboration is grounded in. So that's at least one way of making a reference for them. What I would like to do now is to show you a little example, because these the SDGs and also these categories of problem symptoms are still a little abstract somehow. So I want to give you the possibility to bring in a little bit kind of your own experience of what you are actually seeing. And so let me just quickly show a little video here. And then